The Coverman-Dickerson Agency, with offices in Troy, Piqua, and Covington, is pleased to be the sponsoring Buckeye Insurance Group agent for this first-person interview. For farm, auto, and homeowner insurance, Coverman-Dickerson is one of the area's fastest-growing Buckeye providers, with a history of service and competitive rates. And we're also an outstanding source of coverage for families with young drivers. For farm, auto, and home policies, call the Coverman-Dickerson Agency, proud to represent Buckeye Insurance Group.
Another edition of First Person this week, again sponsored by the Buckeye Insurance Group in Piqua and the Coverman-Dickerson Agency representing Buckeye in Troy, Piqua, Covington, and St. Paris. We are, as we sit here in Jackson Center High School today, about 2 weeks from the start of the 2012-13 boys basketball season. Our guest is a young man that distinguished himself last year with the Jackson Center Tigers because for the first time in a generation, I'll let you talk about how many years, Scott Elchert, it was since you'd been to the state Final Four, but you took your basketball team undefeated into Columbus, finished state runners-up in Division IV. I congratulate you belatedly for that. And I ask you the, I guess, $64,000 question. That happened so quickly. It's over and done with. Like John Willoughby told me last year, you're on the bus and halfway home before you realize what hit you. Have you been able to appreciate what you did with that basketball team last year?
Yeah, we most definitely were able to take a step back and enjoy it once we came home on Saturday evening. They had a nice welcome home celebration for us, and you know, we talked about the fact that we were disappointed in losing, but I also really emphasized we were not going to allow that particular game to overshadow what had transpired throughout the course of the year. We won 27 games, league championship, district championship, regional championship, and then to win our semifinal in the fashion that we did, that we were not going to allow one game to blemish. So it went very quickly, but I do think that we talked a lot as coaches and as players throughout that whole week as we were getting ready to head to Columbus, that we were going to work hard just like we had all year, but we were going to step back and soak it all in and take it in too, knowing that could be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And I kind of got that from talking to guys like Coach Willoughby and so forth who had been there, you know, to make sure that you enjoyed the experience while it's there.
One thing about it, you're going to remember that season a long time for the fact that you had your back against the wall. You didn't cruise to that 27-0. No. You had a lot of very close calls and a lot of memorable moments, and I'm sure a lot of things that really helped your kids, not only for the fact of getting to the state finals in Columbus, but later in life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely it was a tough tournament run, and we went up against some great teams, and we talk about that all the time with the game of basketball and really athletics in general. You can apply it later in life because of the experiences and some of the turmoils and some of the things that you have to overcome from an adversity standpoint. So not only was the experience great for the kids, but I'm sure as you mentioned, those things will be lifelong lessons.
Scott Elchert, the head basketball coach here at Jackson Center, our guest this week on First Person. It's ironic that 2 years in a row, teams from the Shelby County League get to the state finals, and I know you guys are very proud of the basketball you play here, the 7 members of this conference, year in, year out. I hear this comment at the sections, at the district particularly for the teams that you guys send home, and certainly in the regionals, those guys play the game right. You do the little things because you're not a prohibitively big team or fast team. You just play well together as a team, and opposing coaches always talk about that. I'm sure you're very proud of that.
Yeah, we really emphasize chemistry and knowing, as you mentioned, we have to do things the right way. Fundamentally, we need to be sound. We got to check out, go get the rebound. We can't just rely strictly on athleticism. So that group really bought in and understood at a very young age and continued to gel and come together and rewarded with last season.
And every once in a while, an Andy Hoying comes along.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
It makes things easy.
Scott Elchert, our guest this week. We're going to take this break for a word from Buckeye Insurance and the Coverman-Dickerson Agency representing Buckeye in Troy, Piqua, Covington, and St. Paris. Please stay tuned.
If you are looking for quality insurance protection from a reliable company, sold by professionals in communities like yours, that's what you'll get from Buckeye Insurance Group.
Buckeye Insurance Group. insuring the heartland.
To find your local Buckeye agent, visit buckeye-ins.com. Buckeye Insurance Group, insuring the heartland.
Insuring the heartland.
Welcome back to Jackson Center High School this afternoon with Scott Elchert, the coach of the Tigers. And I'm going to ask you a little bit of a philosophical question. We were talking about the team during the break that you played last year, a Berlin Highland team that I jokingly said might have beaten the Boston Celtics that day. Division IV team that went 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", shot lights out. I remember looking at my stats this week, Scott, and for periods of that game, 6 and 8 minutes at a time, they shot like 70% from the floor. Hard to beat teams like that. So I'm going to ask you the question, and I'm sure there's coaches who will either appreciate or not appreciate this. Better to win the state title or better to win your league? Given that when you win this league, it is a level playing field. You're playing teams like you. Realistically, you're competitive against the likes of Loramie and Anna and teams like that, certainly Rushi, as opposed to going to a situation like that, playing a team that played as well that particular day, and you're riding the bus home and your kids are sitting back there thinking, what hit us?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know if I have a definite answer for that. I would say this, that anytime we feel that you can win our league, in a boys basketball standpoint, you feel very good about that, and you try to make that one of your goals heading into any season. And what we try to do then is we try to separate our league season from the tournament, knowing that you get on a tournament run, anything can happen. Everybody does start from scratch, 0-0. So you can't take anything. You can't take anything for granted. So, it meant a lot to us to win the league, because actually it had been since 1998. We won the league back in '97 and '98, back-to-back years, and it had been a while since we had won the league. So that was a big thing that we were trying to accomplish last year. Yeah, I don't know if I have a definite answer for that, but the league is very important from the standpoint it is. You're playing; those are the teams that you battle with year in and year out.
It certainly helps your kids from the standpoint of competing later in life to know that all things being equal, I won that, I can win this. I guess that's the bigger point.
Yes, and I think that's very accurate.
Let's talk a little bit about a couple of things different about the 2012-13 season. I've been asking coaches this along the way. You played 22 games this year on your season. There's some coaches who've been waiting for this for years and years. You're the athletic director here. Most guys who are athletic directors would say, budget-wise, I like the 2 extra gates. It really helps us pay a few bills. Other coaches say, hey, we have a hard enough time getting 20 games in. Where do you stand on that this year and that change?
I'm not a proponent of 22 games as the AD or as a coach. From the athletic director standpoint, sure, it's a little bit more revenue, but as the point you alluded to, it's tough to get really 4 extra games in because your girls are playing 2 and your boys are playing 2. Around here,
that's a good point.
In our area, you take into account, we play a lot of the MAC schools, so they're obviously ultra successful, volleyball, football. Our schools around here are successful in volleyball, so if you have extended seasons, it makes it very tough to try to squeeze those games in. From a coaching standpoint, I wasn't a proponent of it either. I thought 20 games were plenty. Our athletes here, the majority of them, especially the last few years, they're 3-sport athletes. So to squeeze 2 more games in, it's tough, and that much more scouting, that much more prep work. So I was okay with 20. I
could not end this without giving you an opportunity to talk about some of your kids then and some of your kids coming back this year. I mentioned Andy Hoying a moment ago because outstanding young man, and he gave you so much in his 4 years here. You and I talked about that last year. Played as a freshman and on, and outstanding for his contribution to your program and others, certainly. But you've got some good kids coming back. And I know you know some of them very, very well and intimately. So talk a little bit about what your program will look like the year after going to the Final Four.
We feel like we've got a nice nucleus coming back, and we have 7 seniors that have been together since they were in 4th grade. The group that graduated, Andy and Troy, that were 5th graders. This group was 4th graders. They came together and they've played all throughout. So it's been a little bit different not having those two guys in the mix, but we feel very good about these 7 seniors. And 3 of them are returning starters from last year's team. Eric Ryder in the middle is our 6'5" guy, and then we have my son Trey Elchert out on the perimeter, and Alex Meyer, who plays a little bit of everywhere, but is predominantly a perimeter player.
And can make a big shot.
Yeah, he can make some big shots, that's for sure. Alex is has that scorer's mentality. So we just want to continue to build upon really what we've done now over the last 4 to 5 years. So if you're an outsider and didn't know a lot about our program, it's easy to point to the year 2012, but really that started about 4 years ago for us. We had a couple of tough back-to-back seasons, and we decided as a group of kids and coaches, as a program, and we were going to do things to turn things around, and we've just continued to make steady progress over the last 4 to 5 years, and this year's group says they want to continue down that road.
I remember having seen you 4 or 5 times during the course of the year last year. I mentioned Alex Meyer for the big shots that he made. You ever have a year where you just felt like you were outside your skin as much as you were last year because of so many big moments, big defensive plays, big rebounds, big shots, big free throws, big moments?
Yeah, no doubt. And I think probably any coach that has, any team that has one of those type of seasons would probably say that. There was just so many special moments along the way that sometimes you sit back and say, wow, and but it was neat, real neat.
You've been around basketball a long time at Upper Sandusky and coming down here, and wish you nothing the best. You have been around great basketball, and I dare say there'll still be great basketball here in the years to come because you got it going on, and appreciate that. Appreciate this. Been looking forward to talking to you for a long time.
I appreciate you coming up, son. Great. It's always good seeing you.
Great guest. Scott Elchert, the head basketball coach of the Jackson Center Tigers, here on this edition of First Person. That wraps up this week's edition, of course, sponsored again by the Buckeye Insurance Group in Piqua and the Coverman Dickerson Agency representing Buckeye and Troy, Piqua, Covington, and St. Paris. Thanks again for your support of First Person and here on the website. We appreciate it. Wish everybody out there a great holiday for Coach Elchert and the sponsors. See you again next time here on First Person and Press Pros.